Good afternoon, it's Jon here from UniTasterDays. I'm going to be hosting the event today. I'm delighted to say we're running a session looking at UCAS. So we're going to look at some pre-application tips in relation to UCAS and also some post-application tips in relation to UCAS as well. So a big welcome to you, whether you are joining us this afternoon live or watching back on the recording using unitasterdays.com/Tuesdays. I really hope you find this event really, really useful. I'm delighted today to be joined by Amy Newton. Amy is an area lead with the University of Hull in the Schools and Colleges Engagement Team, and also Farhana Begum, who's joined us from the University of Bradford. Farhana is an outreach officer. Amy is going to open things up today with a roughly 15-minute session looking at UCAS pre-application tips. Now, I'm always conscious you tuned in to hear from Amy, not hear from myself, so I'll go straight to Amy now, please, with some UCAS pre-application tips. Over to you. Thanks, Amy.
I'm Amy, and I'll be running you through the process of applying to university while giving you some top tips along the way. Let's get started. So for most university courses, you'll need to apply through UCAS, and UCAS are the University and Colleges Admissions Service, and they're a charity who have information on almost every course available in the country and the institutions that you can study these at. Importantly for you, UCAS are the people that work between you and a university to process your application to higher education. And there's lots of courses to choose from, so over 50,000 in fact. Most school leavers choose to do an undergraduate full-time degree course, but you can enter in at a different level. You can enter in at a lower level and do a foundation course, a foundation year. You can also decide to do a master's as part of your degree course and have another year added on to it. And if you want to, you can choose to do a placement year as part of that, so a work placement or a year abroad. There are so many different options at this stage, and it's really up to you to decide which ones are best for you. And that includes part-time study as well, although that does require a different application route. So some of you may already know what course you're interested in and what you would like to study, and for others it may present a little bit more of a challenge. So really, it's really a great time, a fantastic tip to get started as early on this as possible. So what I can say is reflect on your current studies. What are you good at? What are you really enjoying at the minute? You may have studied something like, I don't know, business, but actually find that it's the finance side of that business course that you're really enjoying. So have a little moment of reflection, even get a mind map and write it all down of what you're really enjoying and what careers those subjects could take you into. And how do you learn best on these courses? Practically, independently, as part of a group? Have a little think about that and the assessment methods that suit you. Do you hate exams? Do you love exams? What do you really want to do and what are you going to excel in? Then you can move on to having a look at what courses are available out there. So comparing those university courses, have a look at those modules that are included as part of it. So going onto university websites, bringing them up side by side and having a look at the modules that make up your degree and figuring out which ones are most appealing to you. Also looking at the assessment methods, the teaching methods, and then using that reflection to intertwine that and have a look at what's going to suit you best. It's really important to start looking at the tariff points as well. So look at the entry requirements. Do you have to have a specific A level to go onto that course, and are you currently studying that? And to get to grips with the UCAS tariff system. So you can actually go onto the UCAS tariff calculator. If you don't know what subjects you're currently studying, then find out what those titles are. It may be a BTEC, but what's the official title of it? And find out how many points you're going to get with the predicted grade. Then you can start to see with the UCAS tariff calculator whether you meet the course requirements and whether you're eligible to apply for this kind of course. All unis offer different opportunities, they're different sizes, they have different student populations, and according to UCAS, there were 395 higher education providers to choose from in 2020. So it's up to you again to start looking at not only just the course, but where do you want to study this at? Do you want a campus university where everything's on the one site, or would you much prefer living in a city and having the buildings spread out across the city. So lots of things to start thinking about here, which will help you for when you get down to writing and doing that application form, because you do need to know where you want to apply to for that. So start researching this as early as possible as well. Figure out what's important to you. So it may be important to you to be close to home or far away from home, or the nightlife may be important to you, access to employment opportunities. Write a little list of those things and maybe even mark them out of 10 and start to get a little bit of an idea of what institutions are really going to appeal to you. Then you can start to visit those places, and whether that's virtual or in real life, and you can start to get a real flavour for what that university is like. It's 3 years of your life and it's a huge investment. So taking the time to actually look into this and research the university, have a look at the facilities. What's the student union like? Are there any sports facilities any sports clubs? What societies can you get involved in? What support is there available? And again, you can then start to cross-reference that once you look at lots of different universities and start to get a really good idea of where it is you want to apply to. You can also follow the universities on social media. This may give you an idea of any pre-application opportunities that you can get involved in, any summer schools or any courses that they're running. So some top tips there on how to choose your course and how to choose the university. And here's some resources for you as well. So Discover Uni is a great one. UCAS Hub, the complete uni guide. There's lots of resources on there, so you can take a screenshot of this or just come back to it later in the recording and have a little look at that. And hopefully that will help you on your journey in deciding which courses, which universities you want to apply to. And your aim is to narrow your choices down to just 5 places, 5 courses, 5 institutions combined. So this is the maximum number that you can apply to when you're applying to university. And it's all done through an online system called apply@ucas.com. And it's really simple to do. Your college will probably talk you through this, but you just have to register your details and create an account. So each of your courses should have a specific course code attached to it. So again, whilst you're doing your research, make sure you write that course code down so you don't lose it. And it's worth noting that if you're applying to courses like medicine, veterinary science or dentistry, then you can only use 4 of your choices to apply for these subjects. You can use a 5th choice, but it has to be as like a backup choice. It can't be used on any of those subjects. Also, if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, then you can only apply to one or the other and not both. And these restrictions are in place because they're very competitive and lots of applications are made to these kind of courses. Of course, you don't have to use all 5 of your choices. If you want to, you can just use 1. If you would like to use 3 of your choices to apply to the same university, you can do. But another top tip is we recommend that you try and stick to a specific course or quite similar, because your UCAS application on your personal statement, that will address that subject. So we don't want to be talking too much about biology and then trying to talk about teaching in the same personal statement. So try and keep those course choices quite specific if you can. So there's multiple, you can apply multiple times for different courses if you want, and there's a small fee attached, and it's worth checking with your college how this works and how the process works for payment within your school or college. When your application is processed and received by the university, they can't see which other institutions you've applied to. So you may list them 1 to 5 on your personal statement, in which case the university will see which place they've been listed, but at this point it doesn't show any preferences for one or the other. So don't worry too much about that when you're applying. And in terms of when you start your application, you can start register for apply in May, and you can start to complete that form, but you can only submit your application at the start of September, which by this point you'll be entering year 13 or year 2 of your studies. If you're making an application for Oxford or Cambridge or those medicine, dentistry, veterinary science courses that we just talked about, then the deadline for your UCAS application is earlier. There is a mid-October deadline, so just to make you aware of that. And that's usually because there are other processes such as interviews involved in the application process. For all other applicants, the main deadline for undergraduate applications is mid-January. But again, your college may have an internal deadline in place, so it really is worth checking with them to see when this deadline is. And that's usually because there is a reference that attaches onto the end of your application that your college tutor will need to write. So they like to get those in early to allow them time to do that. So if you get your application in by that January deadline, then your application is given equal consideration with everybody else's. But obviously it can get quite busy towards that January deadline. So the sooner you can get it in, the better. And after this time, any applications are considered as late, but you can apply until the end of June. And there are other ways available, such as clearing, where you can apply if for whatever reason you don't get on through the main cycle. So looking at your UCAS application, it's completely online. You'll register with an email and create a password, and then you'll be given a username, and you can then log in to complete the 7 sections of your application. Now, you can complete the sections at your own pace. You can log in and log out. And when you've completed a section, it kind of does a tick. You can basically, it logs your progress. So it will show a red tick beside it. So just to mention that if you're applying through college, then the references section, that 7th section there, that won't be visible to you on apply, as this will be arranged for you later. And a key part of your application is the personal statement. And I want to move into this to give you some top tips before we finish today. So your personal statement is a huge part of this application, and it's something that you can start working on as early as possible. It's the only part where you can really inject some personality into your personal statement and tell the admissions tutor why they should offer you a place on their course. So it's something that's required as part of the UCAS process and the UCAS application. And when you apply to university, it's your opportunity to tell us what motivates you and what excites you about the particular course you want to study. Now, there are some things to bear in mind. This piece of writing has to be your own original work, because UCAS does have a plagiarism check, so make sure it's your own work, although it's always good to get somebody to cast an eye over it and proofread it, etc. But it is limited to 4,000 characters or 47 lines, whichever comes first. So although you have a maximum of 5 choices on your UCAS application, it's worth mentioning that this one personal statement goes to each of those 5 different choices. So that's why I mentioned at the beginning, try and choose a subject that you can really focus on in your personal statement and talk about, because it will go to all those 5 institutions or 5 places that you're applying to. So what are we looking for in a personal statement? Well, as our head of admissions and applicant services explains here in this lovely quote here, we want to see the person behind the grades and understand the journey to making your subject choices. So it mentions if you're applying for a professional practice course, so that's anything kind of healthcare related or teaching, then your personal statement should tell us more about your commitment and passion to these professions. And that also includes for subjects like art, drama, music. You know, it's looking at what your passion is and what's your commitment to these professions. So a personal statement, who is it read by? It's usually read by an admissions tutor, and they're usually an academic within the faculty who have this extra responsibility for making decisions on who gets onto a course and who doesn't, who to give these places to. And the personal statement can be used by an admission tutor to help make decisions, especially for those courses that require an interview as part of the process. So it can help them decide whether or not to invite you to an interview. And it may also help universities make a decision on applications where students have narrowly missed the conditions of their offer. So if you've maybe got 1 grade below when you receive your results. So especially at Hull University, we look at the whole picture and take into consideration lots of things as well as your grades. So it's really worth investing your time and your energy into making this really good. In terms of some top tips for writing this, and I'll zoom through these, opening paragraph, go straight in, state the course title, what do you want to do, avoid the cliches. We don't want to hear, and I've seen many personal statements that says, oh, I've wanted to do this since I was born, you know, please avoid that. Try not to be too quirky or funny, controversial, because it can offend. You don't know who else is reading this at the end. So keep it brief, keep it short and to the point. Looking at those main paragraphs, we want to see information about you, your knowledge and experience. So this might be something about your current course, aspects of your current study that you really enjoy. Is it a particular module in your BTEC or a particular topic in your A-level or part of your EPQ that you've done? Anything that's really relevant, it's including work experience and texts that you've read, things around that you can mention here. Achievements, and these can be accredited or non-accredited, so Duke of Edinburgh, any music awards, any productions that you've been in. So have a real think. It may be really good for you to kind of get a mind map again and start jotting down some of the things that you've done so that you can really think about that. And the thing is, it's so hard to do that, to think about your own strengths. So the sooner you can do it and start writing it down, even talk to somebody, talk to a friend and say, what do you think I've done? And they might be able to help you with it. Hobbies and interests, including if you have a job, and then think about the skills that this gives you. So what skills have you got from this? Have you got communication skills, all these time management, you know, leadership skills? What have these activities given you and how can these relate to the course that you're applying for? So again, just quickly moving on to the ABC method, which I think is really helpful at this stage. The A is the activity, so think about the activity that you've done. Then the B is the benefit, so what are the transferable skills that you've achieved from these? And then the C is the course, and relate it back to the course and how it's going to help you be the perfect candidate for being on that course. Of course, this is going to take you a while, so make sure that you draft this. We do recommend that you do this all in a Word document and then copy and paste it into the actual UCAS application because there isn't a spell checker or anything in there. So do it all in draft and keep going over it. You can spend lots of time doing this. And always have a strong finish. That goes without saying, because this can really show your passion to study the course and leave a lasting impression with the admission tutor. So just to round up some do's and don'ts, do make those sensible course choices. Get started. The hardest thing is just starting. Get those ideas down and demonstrate through your words those the commitment, the enthusiasm, the passion. Language can be so important here. Think about not just that, you know, you enjoyed doing something, but that you love doing it, you found it exciting. What kind of a person are you? Are you gregarious? Are you determined? Are you passionate? You know, this is your opportunity for you to get all of that down on paper. So write a draft, redraft and redraft again. Have that clear structure and use those paragraphs. That will help guide you. And do get others to check what you've already done. Grammar, punctuation and spelling can be a real sign of your academic ability. So try not bullet point, use those paragraphs and make sure that you do those checks. Don't plagiarize. Please don't mention specific institutions because it's going to be going out to whichever institutions you apply to. You don't want to overcomplicate things at all. Just keep it really simple. But top tip, get started on this as soon as possible. Get those ideas down. And that will really help you. That's going to be one of the last things you do on your personal statement. Then you're going to submit it and you will be into the next stage, which we're going to take you through as part of the rest of this recording. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed that about the pre-application process.
Thank you very much, Amy. That was excellent. Do you mind, Amy, just clicking stop share and it'll come back to me now. But really good guide. I'm also a big fan of the ABC. Loads of students do the A, not so many students, as Amy will know, do the B and the C. So make sure you do the B and the C as well. And just a final thought from me before we pass things to Farhana. Amy mentioned about investment in terms of your pre-choices. So when you're making your pre-application, while working on your pre-application, before you've actually applied to UCAS, I can't tell you enough how important it is to really spend time thinking about which universities you want to study at, which course you want to do. And loads of students always worry about the cost of university, but there's a student finance system in place for that. But as Amy said, a big part of the cost is actually time. You're investing 3 years at university, probably. It might be 2 years, there's 2-year courses out there, but you might actually be spending 4 or 5 years at university as well. So it's so important that you make really good choices, and Amy highlighted some really good tips as part of that. So big thanks to Amy from the University Hull. Really appreciate that, Amy. Thank you. So what we're going to do now is go on to the next level. Essentially, we've looked at pre-application. Now we're going to take things a little bit further and look at post-application and the things to be aware of once your application is submitted. And what I'm going to do now is pass things to Farhana Begum, who's joined us from the University of Bradford. Farhana is an outreach officer, and she's going to talk through essentially what's next in the UCAS process. Over to you, Farhana.
I'm going to be covering the post-application part. So the main point that we're going to be talking through is UCAS track. Okay, so once your application has been submitted, any communication that institutions make or any replies that you get or any updates will be through UCAS track. So the way that you would access UCAS track is going onto the UCAS website, logging in using your sign-in. The sign-in is something that you'll get when you apply, so it'll be in your welcome email. So use your personal ID and the password that you created when you're applying to log in. And whenever there is an update, UCAS will send you an email to update you and basically give you a reminder to log into your track and see what the update is. Okay, so with UCAS track, there's two things that happens through there. So any offers that you get or any invitations that you have for an interview perhaps, all of this will be on your UCAS track when you log in. UCAS track is also used for any replies that you need to make. So if you do get given all your offers, you then need to make a decision about which institutions you'd like to put as your first and second. That we will cover later on, but all of that, it all happens on UCAS track, okay? So in terms of offers, the university basically will give you a conditional offer or an unconditional offer, okay? So a conditional offer is basically, there's some basically set conditions that you have to meet in order for you to be guaranteed a place on your course. So that might be based on your exam results. So they might give you a provisional offer looking at your predicted grades, and then based on that, providing you get those grades, you will then be given an unconditional offer. Or some students, what happens is they get given an unconditional offer straight away. So if you have that, it means that you've already met the requirements of the course and your place is guaranteed. So when you log into UCAS track, you'll see either a conditional offer or an unconditional offer. Okay, but obviously sometimes things don't quite go to plan and you may not have been made an offer. So even if you've applied to 5 institutions, sometimes you may not meet the requirements, or there may be some circumstances which means that you've not met the conditions of the offer, or equally you might decline those offers, okay? So what you can do is go into UCAS track and go through something called UCAS Extra to apply for more courses. So, but what you would have to do is apply to 1 course at a time. So where in the main cycle, you would apply to 5 courses across possibly 5 institutions. If you're going through UCAS Extra, you will have to apply to 1 course at a time. Okay, so once you've been given an update on your offers, you then need to make a decision as to which offer you will take. Okay, so once all decisions are in, you have to reply back by a certain date. Okay, so what you would have to do is select your firm choice, which is your first choice, your first preference. And then what you can do is basically select your second choice, which is called an insurance choice. But the thing is, if your first choice is an unconditional, you won't be able to apply for a second choice because your first choice is guaranteed. So if your first choice, which is your firm choice, which is what we refer to, is a conditional, then you can apply to an insurance choice, which is like a backup option in case your first choice don't guarantee you an offer once you get your results, okay? And then what you will do is you'll decline your other 3 offers if you've applied to 5 in total. So that is how you would reply back to any offers that you are made. So to find out if you have a place on results day, what happens is you would log into UCAS track and you will basically see either your conditional offer turning unconditional. So if it's unconditional, it means you've met the requirements and basically you've got a place. If your place is conditional still, it probably nothing to worry about, because on results day, admissions team, different systems, you know, they do tend to collapse because there's a lot of demand. So sometimes results, any outstanding sort of inquiries don't really get processed on time. So if it is conditional, it doesn't always necessarily mean that they've forgotten about you. It just means that the university are still probably updating the status, or they're probably just looking at any outstanding information like exam results, any other evidence that you needed to submit. They might not have had a chance to go through that. So if you are in doubt and it's not changed, there's no harm in ringing in up the institution and just asking for a quick update, which they'll be happy to do. If you are unsuccessful and don't meet the requirements of the condition, then you can always apply through clearing. So on results day, the clearing helpline is always open across all the institutions. So if you don't get your conditional offer as an unconditional, you're more than welcome to ring in the institution of your choice, give them your exam grades, and then you can see what other courses you may be eligible for as well. Okay, so clearing and adjustment. Okay, so after results day, there's two things that happen. Okay, so there's clearing and adjustment. If you've got your place, fantastic, you don't need to do anything. But if you don't quite meet the requirements, like I said, you can call on clearing, you can call the institutions directly and see what courses are available, depending on the grades that you've got. Or equally, there's a process called adjustment. Now, if on results day you've actually exceeded your predicted grades, and there's another course in mind that you might have preferred to do but didn't quite get it in the main cycle, there's no harm in ringing in the institution and asking to see if you can change courses because you've exceeded in your exam grades. And now that's the process that we call adjustment. All of this information is available on each university's website with relevant telephone numbers closer to the time. Okay, so that's the main process of how you would accept offers, how you would basically see any updates on UCAS track. I've just got some FAQs to go through, and then hopefully that would wrap up the session. So just bear with me. So the first one we tend to get is, I'm on track, but I don't have an option to reply to my offers. What is going on? So usually this is because you haven't had a decision from all your choices yet. However, if you're ready to reply and don't want to wait for your other choices to make a reply, you can choose to cancel them. To do this, all you have to do is click view for each outstanding choice, and then you'll see an option that says permanently withdraw from choice. So once you've done it, then you click reply to offers button, which will be available in your choices section of track. If you've been offered an interview, you'll need to decline it first and then cancel the choice before you can reply to your offers. If it's an interview that you've already been to, just call up UCAS and they will be able to assist you. All of this, don't try and memorize it or make notes. All of this you'll be guided through with your college tutors. And if you're ever in doubt, you can always ring up UCAS. Another one we get is, can I reply to more than 2 offers? You can accept a maximum of 2 choices, 1 firm and 1 insurance. You can only have an insurance choice, as I mentioned, if your firm is a conditional offer. If you accept an unconditional offer as your firm, so that's your first choice, the place is guaranteed, so you can't have an insurance choice. Another question, do you have to reply to all your offers at the same time? Yes, you have to reply back to your offers at the same time. As long as you reply before the deadline date, then your replies will be recorded. But do give yourself enough time to decide and make an effective choice, okay? So just because there's a deadline doesn't mean that you have to quickly sit within a minute and just quickly reply. Make sure, like Amy said, you've done your research. Make some time to go to these institutions, see what they're like, get a feel for it, and try and reflect back on this when you're making your choices. Yes, there is a deadline, but if you manage your time well, hopefully, as you're going through the application process, you'll get a feel for which sort of institutions you prefer over others. So then when you come to sitting down and making that choice on UCAS track, it shouldn't be a difficult task. I've made a mistake with my replies. Can I change them? You can change your replies once within 14 days of initially making the choice. But you would have to give UCAS a ring in order to do that and go through exactly what you've done. But yes, you can initially within the first 2 weeks of making that choice. And when do I need to apply? once you've had the decisions back from all your choices, you'll be given a date to track by track, which you'll need to reply back to. So these are just brief sort of deadlines of when you would need to reply back from. So for example, if your last decision came from your 5th university on the 31st of March, you have until the 5th of May roughly to reply back, and so on as the table shows. So those are the frequent questions that we get asked. So that's the end of this post-application tips and processes. Hopefully you found it useful, and thank you very much.